Hello, YouTube. In continuation of the Cherokee myths, this one is the Deluge. This is a series that I'm doing where I'm going to read a bunch of the traditional Cherokee um, stories that normally are handed down from generation to generation, where they they incorporate a lot of their ways of living, their um, morals, ideals, um, everything was spoken word. They told stories, and that's how information was passed on. Nothing was really written down, even though they did have an alphabet and a written language. The Deluge. A long time ago, a man had a dog which began to go down to the river every day and look at the water and howl. At last the man was angry and scolded the dog, which then spoke to him and said, "Very soon there's going to be a great fresh freshet and water will come so high that everybody will be drowned. But if you will make a raft to get upon when the rains come, you can be saved. But you must first throw me into the water." The man did not believe it, and the dog said, "If you want a sign that I speak the truth, look at the back of my neck." He looked at the dog's neck, and the skin worn off so that the bones stuck out. Then he believed the dog, and began to build the raft. Soon the rain came and took his family, with plenty of provisions, and they all got upon it. It rained for a long time, and the water rose until the mountains were covered, and all the people in the world were drowned. Then the rain stopped, and the waters went down again, until the last it was safe to come off the raft. Now there was no one alive but the man and his family. But one day they heard a sound of dancing and shouting on the other side of the ridge. The man climbed to the top and looked over. Everything was still, but all along the valley he saw great piles of bones of people who had been drowned. And then he knew it was the ghost that had been dancing. So this was the flood story, which the Cherokee obviously believed that there was a flood that wiped everybody out and the man had a raft. You know, these stories, they go from Sumerian all the way forward. Every single culture of people spread out across our world has a story of this flood that happened. I mean, you can't go around that. I mean, you know, everybody it tells it a different way, and there's a lot of things like the dog's neck and the bones sticking out that if you don't really know Cherokee and the way they believe about certain things, you wouldn't know what any of that meant. And it sounds strange, but believe me, it's significant. Let's see. I'm gonna do another one here. There's one I was looking at. Um, how the rabbit stole the otter's coat. The animals were of different sizes and wore coats of various colors and patterns. Some wore long fur and others wore short. Some had rings on their tails and some had no tails at all. Some had coats of brown, some black or yellow. They were always disputing about their good looks. So at last they agreed to hold a council to decide who had the finest coat. They had heard a great deal about the otter, who lived so far up at the creek that he seldom came down to visit the other animals. It was said that he had the finest coat of all, but no one knew just what it was like because it was a long time since anyone had seen him. They did not even know exactly where he lived, only the general direction, but they knew he would come to the council when they got word out. Now the rabbit wanted the verdict for himself, so when it began to look as if it might go to the otter, he studied up a plan to cheat him out of it. He asked a few sly questions until he learned about a trail that the otter would take to get to the council place. Then, without saying anything, he went on ahead, and after 4 days' travel, he met the otter and knew him at once by his beautiful coat of soft, dark brown fur. The otter was glad to see him and asked him where he was going. Um, Hang on. This is 266, 265. So where is story? It doesn't carry to there. Let's see. Nope, we want the otter. Where is the otter? Otter, otter. Where is the otter? I've never seen an otter, really, that I can think of. I'm going to have to look into that. I remember hearing that they have beautiful coats for some reason. Um, but, okay, here we go. Oh, said the rabbit, the animals sent me to bring you to the council. Because you live so far away, they were afraid you mightn't know the road. The otter thanked him, and they went out together. They traveled all day toward the council ground, and at night the rabbit selected the camping place. Because the otter was a stranger in that part of the country and cut down bushes for beds and fixed everything in good shape. The next morning they started on again. In the afternoon, the rabbit began to pick up wood and bark as they went along and loaded on his back. When the otter asked what this was for, the rabbit said that they might be warm and comfortable at night. After a while, when it was near sunset, they stopped and made their camp. When supper was over, the rabbit got a stick and shaved it down to a paddle. The otter ordered and asked again what that was for. I have good dreams when I sleep with a paddle under my head. Yeah, the otter sees something going on here, and the rabbit is always up to no good. In all of the stories, you'll see the rabbit is always trying to connive something and try and beat out somebody. He's very narcissistic and very underhanded, the rabbit is. When the paddle was finished, the rabbit began to cut away the bushes so as to make a clean trail down to the river. The otter wondered more and more and wanted to know what this meant. Said the rabbit, "This place is called the place where it rains fire." That should tell you right there. Rabbit's about to do something. Um, Sometimes it rains fire here, and the sky looks a little that way tonight. You go to sleep and I'll sit up and watch, and if the fire does come, as soon as you hear me shout, you run and jump into the river. Better hang your coat on a limb over there so it won't get burnt. Which makes no sense. If he's jumping into the river, why would he take his coat off? The otter did as he was told, and they both doubled up to go to sleep. But the rabbit kept awake. After a while, the fire burned down to red coals. The rabbit called, but the otter was fast asleep and made no answer. In a little while he called again, but the otter never stirred. Then the rabbit filled the paddle with the hot coals and threw them up into the air and shouted, "It's raining fire! It's raining fire!" The coals fell all around the otter and he jumped up. "To the water! To the water!" cried the rabbit, and the otter ran and jumped into the river. And as he lived in the water he's ever since. Oh, that's why he lives in the water. The rabbit took the otter's coat and put it on, leaving his own one looking out for the otter. Hang on. Instead, the rabbit took the otter's coat and put it on, leaving his own instead, and went on to the council. All the animals were there, everyone looking out for the otter. At last they saw him in the distance, and they said one to the other, "The otter is coming," and sent one of the small animals to show him the best seat. They were all glad to see him and went up in turn to welcome him. The otter kept his head down with one paw over his face. They wondered that he was so bashful, why he was so bashful, until the bear came up and pulled the paw away, and there was the rabbit with his split nose. He sprang up and started to run, but the bear struck at him and pulled his tail off. But the rabbit was too quick for them and got away. That's why the rabbit has a cotton tail and doesn't have a big tail, I guess. So that ended that right there. Okay, so what did we learn from that? The Why the otter lives in the water, why the rabbit has a messed up tail. But if the rabbit was still wearing the otter's coat, why is I guess they both have soft fur. I don't know. There's a lot of questions in that story that I guess those are the tales that you just have to ponder on for a while. Okay, well, those are two more, and hope you enjoyed them. Think on those things, and we'll get back with another one soon.